Welcome to CT Politics Live with Joe and Michelle. I'm Jimmy J in for Joe, and that is Dr. Amy Chai in for Michelle. We have all the latest headlines affecting Connecticut. Hello, Dr. Chai. How are you this evening?
Good, Jimmy. I guess you and I are the only people who are well today. Our team
E-
is all sick. What happened?
Everybody's down. Three, right?
Yeah.
3 out of the 5 are down right now with illnesses. I don't know. I mean, I take my vitamins. Maybe that's helping me out.
Mm, too much turkey, I guess everyone had. But get well, Michelle, Dan, and Joe. We want to see you back soon.
Very soon, guys. We miss you
Yeah,
guys.
we miss you.
All right. You want to break right into these?
Yeah.
Gubernatorial candidate Bob Stefanowski lost his father this week at the age of 92. Robert V. Stefanowski Sr. of North Haven, husband of the late Eleanor Stefanowski, passed away peacefully, surrounded by his family on November 27th, 2022. Born in New Haven, Connecticut on May 24th, 1930, the senior Stefanowski went to Hill House High School, where he excelled as a student athlete in baseball, basketball, and soccer. He will be remembered and missed by his for his kindness, generosity, wit, and ability to repair anything. Our hearts go out to the whole Stefanowski family as they go through this difficult time.
Yeah. Our condolences to the Stefanowskis today. It's always rough to lose a family member like that.
Absolutely. I mean, 92 years old, God bless him
Yeah,
for
lived a
uh,
good life.
for having an extended life, I think.
Yeah.
But
But
yeah,
it's
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 always hard.
it's still hard no matter how long their life was, but I'm sure they're gonna miss him.
I'm sure.
Yeah. And according to the New Haven Register today, Yale students and alumni are suing the university for discrimination against persons with mental health disabilities. The 41-page lawsuit filed in the Connecticut District Court alleges that Yale violated the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Rehabilitation Act, the Fair Housing Act, and the Affordable Care Act. Rishi Marchanda, an alumna who is part of the Ellis for Rachel group, said that the thrust of this lawsuit is that Yale has failed to make reasonable accommodations and appropriate modifications to policies that allow students with mental health disabilities to have equal access to Yale's academic program. Yale has been under fire for the way it treats suicidal students through a withdrawal and readmission process, as the Washington Post reported last week. It's an ongoing conversation within the university community, as the Yale Daily News has been reporting. The Post report details how a student who attempted to kill herself after she was raped was pressured to withdraw from the university and go through a lengthy, nerve wracking process to be reinstated as a student. Yale has frequently pushed students with mental health disabilities out of Yale, imposed punitive consequences on students who have withdrawn, and placed unreasonable burdens on students seeking reinstatement, upon which they must, quote, meet higher academic standards, unquote, according to the lawsuit.
I'm so confused by this. I mean, I've always read that Yale, in recent history, is trying to be one of the more exclusive schools. So I'm just so confused why they would make them withdraw. Is
Yeah,
it
well,
numbers? Does it make the university look bad? I mean,
Well, according to the dean, they believe that getting suicidal students out of the school is, quote, good for students, and it's protecting them, keeping them safe. But to me, my professional opinion as a physician is that engaging in things that are even perceived as punitive, to someone who is suicidal or mentally ill is actually going to make the problem worse,
I
not
think it
better.
would exacerbate the
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And And I would just, what a tragedy to have a student go through a life-altering mental illness and then be dropped out of the school like that. That's really terrible.
And then an even harder reapplication process. I just don't understand. Like, how did Yale think that this would not look bad upon them?
Yeah, apparently out of all the Ivy League schools, Yale was actually ranked the lowest as far as accommodations to people with the mental health disabilities. So I'm really surprised because Yale Medical School and Yale's psychiatry program is actually one of the best in the world. So you'd think they would be doing better. I would
think
anyway.
so.
Yeah.
Speaking of Yale, New Haven implements person first language in city laws. Among other changes, the amendment changed the words handicapped persons to persons with disabilities, handicap ramp to accessible ramp, and mental retardation to intellectual disability, according to the new ordinance. Not a bad thing. We always progress in language.
Yeah.
There's always been steps that this country has taken to be less offensive or more understanding. So I don't think this is one of those controversial ones.
Yeah, I don't think it's really controversial. I mean, although sometimes it's hard to put the person first, like in my practice of addiction medicine, we see a lot of what we call justice involved individuals. So I guess we would have to call them individuals involved with justice. But I mean, that's kind of what I'm wondering is, how are they going to enforce this? Is this something, are people going to be like punished if they use the wrong words?
I think this is one of those social justice in the true sense of the word, not like this social justice warrior that's being tossed around. I think people will eventually hold everybody else accountable, just like the words that we used to use in the 80s that are no longer acceptable, but you don't hear them anymore.
Right, right. Yeah. So it's a process, I think,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and I think it's great to think of people first and to take some of the stigma away from people who do have disabilities, because there are a lot of discriminatory thoughts and discriminatory speech, and it's hard enough to have a disability without being made to feel bad about it.
Absolutely.
So, according to the Stamford Advocate, Governor Ned Lamont and First Lady Annie Lamont will be among the guests at the first official state dinner at the White House on Thursday night. That would be tomorrow night. Lamont's office announced his invitation to the dinner, which will highlight the long-standing ties between the United States and France, in a press release on Wednesday. French President Emmanuel Macron and his wife Brigitte Macron will be the distinguished guests. Wow, that sounds pretty fun, right? I would love to go to a state dinner with the leaders of France. Wouldn't that be fun? President Joe Biden is hosting the first state dinner since 2019. Wonder what happened in 2019. Marking a return to some of the more ceremonial pomp and circumstance activities at the White House that were put on hold due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
I like that things are getting back to normal.
Oh yeah, me too. Yeah, it's this to me is a sign that America's really kind of moving forward, getting through the whole COVID scenario, having life return to normal. I'm sure everybody's really excited about that. I know I am. I know there's actually some debate now about students at University of Connecticut who are still having like mask and testing mandates to go to college. So I know that that's an issue that's still on the table. So I guess we're kind of moving forward at different paces, and those infections, they're still out there. So we do have to, still be cautious.
I want to talk to you as a doctor about all this, actually, but I think we need to move along with the headlines first.
Wash your hands twice,
right?
3 times. Right.
Speaking of public health, the Connecticut Department of Public Health confirmed the first flu death of the year. In November, a New London County man in his 50s died from complications with the virus. In a press release, Public Health Commissioner Manisha Juthani, I hope I said that right, warned residents of how the flu season is already one of the earliest and most severe in recent years. This is a tragic reminder that the 2022-23 flu season is already an active one, Juthani said. As we approach the holiday, I strongly recommend that persons 6 months of age and older get a flu shot. Juthani urged state residents to get their flu shots and COVID-19 boosters if they have not already. She expects both the flu and COVID-19 to worsen once winter officially begins. There have been close to 6,000 flu cases and 102 hospitalizations so far. The state health department said the exact number of flu cases may be higher due to lack of reporting.
Yeah, it's always hard to know, like, how many people do have the flu. I mean, how many of us get sick? We have a cough, a cold, and maybe a fever, but you don't feel bad enough to go to your doctor.
I think I had it a month ago and I didn't report it. So
oh yeah,
I'm one of those.
So it could be COVID, it could be RSV, it could be influenza. And as for me, because I take care of my elderly parents, I actually, if I get sick, I do try to go and get tested so that I know, how much risk there is and if I can do the things that I normally do, like getting groceries and visiting my parents and things like that. So, certainly if you do have family members who are elderly, if you do have anyone who's immunosuppressed, or if you're, 55 and over, you may want to consider using extra caution this season because we do have this triple threat here.
So as a doctor, what do you say about the people saying the masks are there? Because we wore masks for so long, our immune system wasn't able to keep up with these viruses that are out there now, and that's why it's more severe.
No, that's not true, actually. It was really actually pretty dramatic. Every year in my clinic, I would usually see a lot of people who have a disease called COPD. And COPD is a lung disease that chronic smokers get, and they have trouble breathing. And one of the things we see every winter is COPD getting worse and people getting really sick with worsening COPD. But wearing the masks during flu season for the past couple of years has dramatically cut the number of COPD infections we've seen. And I think that's, not only did it help with COVID, but it also helped with flu. And the fact that people were washing their hands, wearing masks, doing all these things really actually helped people from getting the normal cold and flu viruses. So actually what we're seeing is we're not wearing masks anymore. And so we're not as cautious as we were before. But that's why we're getting sick again. It's not because the masks, harmed our immune system. But I know there's a lot of information out there that's not really very well communicated, unfortunately.
Right. Oh, well, thank you very much for that, clarifying that. I really appreciate that. We're actually going to go to our first break. It's only a 24-second break, so stick around, or it's going to be real quick.
Want to have your show on CT Politics? If you produce a show on CT political issues or commentary and want to play it to the world, contact us now at ctpolitics.tv. We'd love to have you part of the team.
Welcome back to CT Politics Live. I am Jimmy J in for Joe, and that is Dr. Amy Chai in for Michelle. We're discussing some recent headlines, and I believe that Dr. Chai, you're up.
Yes. Thank you, Jimmy. AP News reports that Hartford and senators from Connecticut, Vermont, and Maine called on the Biden administration on Tuesday to bring together federal, state, and regional officials to find ways to prevent possible energy disruptions this winter across New England. The senators, 3 Democrats and 2 independents, said that the region is heavily dependent on natural gas and feeling the impacts of the war in Ukraine and tight global energy supplies. They urged Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm to leverage resources within her department to help bring non-fossil fuel energy online as quickly as possible in the region, and to review any emergency powers that could be used to ensure energy needs are fulfilled without price spikes or supply disruptions. With the upcoming winter season comes a real threat to energy reliability for residents and businesses in New England, wrote Senators Richard Blumenthal and Chris Murphy of Connecticut, Patrick Leahy and Bernie Sanders of Vermont, and Angus King of Maine. Global events caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine are exacerbating the risk that this region will not have the fuel supplies needed to maintain heat and power during an extended cold snap. The Energy Department said in a statement to the Associated Press that it's closely monitoring winter fuel availability, especially if the weather is colder than expected, and it's preparing to address any resulting risks. And the Energy Department also added that our region here in New England is expected to have sufficient energy if our winter is mild to moderate. So a little good news, a little bad news.
So I actually had Joe Nolan. I booked Joe Nolan on my Mornings with Gary Byron's radio show on WDRC. Joe Nolan is the president and CEO of Eversource.
Oh, what did he have to say?
So, interestingly enough, Connecticut makes zero energy of its own. Zero.
Oh,
so, yeah, we have to import everything. And our electricity and our grid is ran on natural gas.
Natural gas, yes. 50% natural gas and 50% nuclear is what I understood.
Correct. So, but if we run out of that natural gas because of the war in Ukraine, so he wanted me to assure everybody, if I talked about this, that we have enough energy to get us through the winter. And if we have an Arctic, and he used that word, Arctic cold spell, like we
always have an Arctic cold snap.
Okay, thank you.
Like every year, they're like, "Oh, it's the Arctic cold snap coming," and then they show that picture of the air coming down from Canada.
Exactly, but if that does not happen, we'll be fine. Right?
Okay.
If it does, and we don't get this natural gas reserve that we're asking for, which all these senators are asking for Joe Biden, I believe that's what they're asking for here. We could be in some brownout territories.
Oh, that's not good at all. Well, I guess we have to stock up on batteries and ask for a nice fuzzy robe for Christmas.
I am jealous of the people that have wood burning stoves this year.
Oh, me too. Oh my goodness.
I wish. Okay. According to Inside Investigator, the CT Lottery Corporation's first year offering retail and online sports betting brought in less revenue than previously projected, according to the Office of Fiscal Analysis. The OFA's Fiscal Accountability Report noted a negative adjustment of $10 million for the state's transfer special revenue, which reflects the underperformance of Connecticut's Lottery Corporation sport betting revenue relative to projections. Connecticut's move into legal online sports and casino gaming in 2021 allowed the CLC to offer in-person retail sports wagering at 15 CLC facilities and online sports betting alongside Mohegan and Foxwoods. which partnered with major sports betting platforms like DraftKings and FanDuel. The CT lottery remains a source of significant revenue for the state that has been growing over time. In 2018, CLC transferred $345 million into the general fund.
Ooh.
21, that number topped out at 418 million, and last year was 401 million. The majority of state revenue from the lottery is funneled to health and human services and education funding. As a part of the legalized gambling statute, CLC also contributes an additional $1 million towards treatment and rehabilitation for problem gamblers. Well, that's a lot of cheddar.
That is a lot. I guess I'm glad that they're using the gambling money to fund education. It's sort of like a math tax.
Right?
Yeah, it's like if you spend like a lot of money gambling, chances are you're going to lose it. Just got to learn a little bit of statistics to get through that. Do you watch, are you a big sports fan?
I used to be a big sports fan, and I used to be a big sports gambler.
Oh, you did? Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Did you ever win money?
Not a lot.
Not a lot.
So, no.
Did you lose more than you won?
On sports gambling, I did. I lost a lot more money than I won.
Oh.
Going to the casinos, I've won a lot more than I've lost, though.
Oh,
so,
well, see.
I've made
You never know. It's the luck of the draw, the luck of the cards. Yeah. It's if you do gamble, you do use lottery, just remember it is a game, and never gamble more than you can actually afford to lose.
That's rule number one.
Yeah, rule number one. It's just for fun. It's not to make money, because most people aren't going to win the lottery, and that's why it's the lottery, right?
Yeah. What's the number? What's your chances? 1 in 347 million?
Yeah, it's like, that's probably not going to happen. It's like, you might as well get struck by lightning, right?
Yeah. So just remember, 346,999,999 people didn't win.
So you're saying there's a chance?
There's a chance.
Okay. Maybe I'll do it once. I'll try. Maybe I'll try. I don't know anything about sports, so I'm sure I would lose.
Sports is hard. It's sports gambling's tough.
So, news from Hartford. Governor Lamont sent out a press release today. He announced that the Connecticut Office of Tourism is continuing its award-winning Find Your Vibe tourism campaign. Find Your Vibe. That's kind of cheesy, but that's okay. Through the winter months, through the release of a new campaign that puts spotlight on the abundant activities and experiences available to visitors in Connecticut during the season. The Find Your Vibe campaign first launched in June, exceeding industry benchmarks as well as year-over-year performance for the summer months, June to September of 2022. And these included 205 million paid media impressions, and that would be like people clicking on it like on Facebook or Twitter, and that was an increase of 80%. 1.5 billion PR impressions, that's a lot. Out of state website visits up 94%. Wow, that's really good. Number of rooms sold is more than 7 million, which is an increase of 9.2%. Short-term rentals, including Airbnbs, amount to 462,000 overnight stays, an increase of 8%, with a total lodging revenue of $1.1 billion, which is an increase of 11%. So that's good news for Connecticut. And some of Connecticut's most popular outdoor winter events include, and pay close attention because you might want to try some of these out. The 12th annual Winterfest at Hartford's Bushnell Park runs from November 25th through January 8th, 2023. So the entire holiday season, there will be free ice skating and carousel rides 7 days a week, along with other activities. There will be a Jump Fest jumping competition for skiers. Oh, that sounds exciting. not for me, for other people. This competition in Salisbury includes Eastern Nationals, target jumping under the lights, junior jumping, the human dog sled race. I wonder what that is. That sounds kind of weird. Okay. Ice carving and snowball. And also the Fire and Ice Valentine Ice Sculpture Competition in February of 2023 is the largest single ice block competition in the United States. Wow. And it's held in Putnam and features more than 6 ice carvings, glowing fire torches, fire performances, and more. So everybody visit Connecticut's tourism website, which is ctvisit.com. That's ctvisit.com. And it includes a full list of events and activities to explore in the state throughout the winter season.
That sounds really cool. Some of that sounds really cool. So
what are you going to do? What are you going to do from this list?
I'm going to try to hit at least 3 of them. I think I want to go to Putnam. I think the ice sculpture sounds really cool.
Definitely going to go to the ice sculpture. That's going to be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I see my clock right now, and it says we're going to come up with a little break, I think.
Okay.
So you are watching CT Politics Live. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with our guest this evening, Themis Klarides. Stick around.
Great.
CT Politics TV and the Connecticut Taxpayers Union present Unaffordable America with Daniel Kent Newmeyer, Joe Patrina's band Little House, focusing on Connecticut.
Now get yourself ready, go cat go. Ooh yeah.
Entertaining and taking an educational look at nonpartisan issues of affordable living in America.
Born in a land where we wave 'em high.
All points of view are welcome.
And we got blue angels climbing in the sky. I'm the luckiest guy in America. I'm the luckiest man born in America.
Join the Connecticut Taxpayers Union right now at ctpolitics.tv.
Born in America.
Welcome back to CT Politics Live. And now we are happy to introduce our special guest for this evening, Themis Klarides. Themis served in Hartford for 22 years, and she was the Connecticut House Minority Leader from 2015 to 2021. She was the highest ranking woman in the legislature and the first woman to lead the Republicans in the House of Representatives. Most recently, she was a candidate for United States Senate. This is a very impressive resume. Welcome, Themis, and thank you very much for being on the show.
Hi, guys. Happy to be on.
It's great to have you on, Themis. It seems to me like this year, I was watching your campaign. I think a lot of us were, and it seemed like this year was a very difficult year for you in many ways. First of all, I'm wondering, how are you doing, and would you be willing to tell us your side of the story in this kind of contentious Republican primary for the Senate?
Well, I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. And I don't really know what my side of the story is, except to say that I served this state for over 20 years, as you mentioned. The last 6 years as the House Republican leader, I was really proud to be the first and only woman leader to lead the House Republicans. I was the only woman leader in the entire legislature, Republican or Democrat. And I always did it for one reason. I did it because I really wanted to help my district in the state. My sister and I, my sister's actually, I know she was on your show the other day. And, we served in the House for 2 terms together, the only sisters to have done that, which was a lot of fun. And I know it made our parents really proud. And they raised us to believe that you have to give back in whatever way is your thing. That doesn't mean politics. That means, nonprofits. That means whatever is important to you. And I ran for office because I believed that I wanted to do what's best for the state. And I was really proud of a lot of things we did, but I think there's so much more to do, and our state's in a really precarious place. So I ran for U.S. Senate for those reasons. And I believed, as we all do when we run, that we're the best candidate for the job. And I think I was in a unique situation in a sense, because I've not only run my own race 11 times, but as leader, I ran hundreds of races all over the state. In 2018, I was in 71 House districts in 3 months.
Wow.
From corner to corner, this state, all different people understanding that this state, although it's the third smallest state in the country, it's so different in so many different areas, 15 minutes apart, and it's night and day different. And I understood what I believed was the kind of candidate we needed to take out a long-term incumbent in Dick Blumenthal. Yeah. And unfortunately, the primary didn't work out that way. And that was, certainly very sad for me and disappointing. And we saw what the results of that were in November. And the sad part of that is, when those are the kind of candidates that you're nominating at the top of the ticket, it affects everybody underneath the ticket. And that's why we lost a seat in the state house. We lost a seat in the state Senate. Greenwich, for example, for the first time in the history of the town of Greenwich, they have 3 Democrat state representatives, and they almost lost their state Senate seat. And, that's because people actually, I think for the first time, voted against their own financial interests, because they were trying to send a message. I'm not happy, with this extremism. I want people to collaborate. And, sometimes we think collaboration is a dirty word, right? Right. So nobody has fought stronger for the principles that I believe are best for the state or the people I represent than me. I have fought tooth and nail. I like to say I'm a loudmouth Greek girl, and I fight for what I believe is right. But the reality is, you're in a legislature, whether it's in your state or in Washington, and your job at the end of the day is to do what's best, not to always just say no, dig your heels in and take your toys and go home. And I think that that's what this election said all across the country, to be honest with you.
I have to agree with you. I really do. It was definitely a weird election across the nation, not just here in Connecticut, as I was watching it happen. I honestly think this was a huge referendum on the Republican Party, which leads me to my next question. I know that you're not Miss Cleo and you don't have a crystal ball, but if you could, look into the future, what do you think, especially here in the state of Connecticut, the Republican Party changes are going to have to be or should be?
Well, I think that we have to reassess who we are and what we believe in, like really what we believe in. Instead of picking and choosing different items and saying this is a litmus test for whether you're a real Republican or a true Republican. To me, a traditional Republican believes in a few things: lower taxes, smaller government, allowing people to make decisions for themselves, strong foreign policy, strong borders, but allowing people in this country, if they want to do the right things, to get in. That's how my family got here. That's how all of our families got here. And so those are the basic principles of being a Republican to me. I think we have gotten off that. I think we have gone in a direction of saying that, you have to support one guy or one gal. And if you don't, then that's, you're not really a Republican. Or specific issues. Dobbs came down in June and we saw what happened with that. I think there's a place in our party for people of differing views, as long as your basic tenets are there. And I think we've drifted from that. And I think that's part of the problem. We have to figure out, who are we? And secondly, do we want to win elections or do we not? Right?
That's a very, very good point. Yeah.
Listen, there were people on August 9th that were patting themselves on the back and pounding their chest saying the real Republican won. And, this is going to be the difference. We're going to win in November. And the reality is this: I have served as a Republican for 22 years. I know what a Republican is. We may not all agree on everything. And I think it's good when we don't. I think it's good to have differing opinions. But what I know is, if we're not going to nominate the people that can actually win in November, then you're part of the problem. then you're just going to have a Democrat for 6 more years, which is exactly what we had. And we've hurt the rest of the ticket underneath.
Yeah, I think a lot of us sort of saw your opponent winning in the primary and thought, well, why go any further because the election's already over. I mean, I think that's what a lot of people were thinking, and it was the truth, especially here in Connecticut, I think. What do you think that the Republican Party will need to do to bring its members to the understanding that, it's not necessarily compromising your values to compromise on policy issues? Is that something that's going to happen that can happen in today's Connecticut Republican Party? What do you think?
Well, I think it has to happen because the numbers are the numbers. I like to say, if you believe in certain positions, and I respect your positions as long as you believe something. Like, I respect everybody. I don't care if they're Republican or Democrat or unaffiliated with, as long as you believe something and you respect mine, right?
There
I mean,
it
I
is.
respect people that I
Absolutely.
disagree with
Absolutely.
more than some people I agree with because I know they believe in something.
Mhm.
And the fact of the matter is, we don't live in Alabama. We live in Connecticut.
Yeah.
So just because you wish the party was one thing doesn't make it so. When you look at the fact that we have almost 500,000 registered Republicans in Connecticut, and only 84,000 came out and voted in an August primary. All right. And the results were 50%, 40%, 10%. We need to have open primaries, I think, is the very first thing we need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if the
that's
independents,
in and of itself.
yeah, if independents would have been allowed to vote, and I am actually an independent, if independents had been allowed to vote in the primary, I think we would have seen very different primary election results with much more electable candidates.
And that's the issue. It's the electable candidates. And when you say that to some people, in their mind, they translate to, oh, well, then what's the difference? I mean, just use my example. Just use my race for an example. What's the difference between then Dick Blumenthal and Themis if she believes in this, this, and this? Well, the difference is I believe in way more than I don't believe. We agree on way more than we disagree on. We don't agree on everything, and I've always said that. But the fact of the matter is having a candidate that might actually beat him versus a candidate who at 8:03 AP called the race.
Yeah. I was gonna mention that.
That was insane.
Yeah, 8:03.
I was on
1% of
TV.
the votes in.
Yeah.
Called the race.
I was on live TV. I mean, I was doing live analysis on Fox 61 that night, and we were just going in the studio to be mic'd up. And the anchor said, "Oh, they called the race." And so, of course, we're saying, "Oh, what race?" And they, well, the AP called. I said, "Which one?" They said, "The Senate." And I said, "Which one?" And they're like, "The Connecticut." I'm like, "What?" They're like, "Themis, we're going to go to you first." I'm like, "Well, I don't even have the mic on yet. I'm not even mic'd up." But yeah.
Wow.
And that's
Yeah,
the problem.
that was
I mean,
crazy.
do you cut off your nose to spite your face? I mean, I have actually a husband who, when he was younger, was very, very involved with a lot of these very right-wing groups. You know, he was that kind of Republican. He's now shifted and, you know, is more open-minded to a lot of things. And he would always tell me that their beliefs are they'd rather lose a general election than compromise. And, you know, I don't know how compromise ever became a bad word. So I'll tell you this: in 2017, in the legislature, one of the years I was leader, when we had a 1 vote difference in the Senate and a 4 vote difference in the House, and the Democrats couldn't pass their own budget, and we ended up passing our Republican budget in the House and the Senate.
Yeah,
that was
great.
compromise. Okay, but
Yeah.
that's how we got a bonding cap and a spending cap and a volatility cap. That's how we have a flush rainy day fund today. The governor brags about.
And that was your accomplishment, wasn't it?
Well, you know, I was proud of what we did with that. You know, I was really proud of that. I mean, we worked on that and it didn't get finished till October 31st. But what happened was when they realized, the Democrats, that even though they had a slight majority, they couldn't get it passed, their budget. And then we called our budget and we passed it. The governor then vetoed it. And we had to make a decision. Do we go to the drawing board and just continue back to digging our heels in? And at that point, it was almost October and we had dug our heels in enough. We made our point that there are options. There's another way. There's a better way to do this. And we sat down. Did we get 100% of what we wanted? We sat in a room with Democrat leaders for 6 weeks. It was, I could never go in that room again. It was a room with no windows for 6 weeks. And we sat there, the six
Oh
of
my
us,
goodness.
and
Sounds awful.
we debated the whole thing. But we got a lot more than we didn't. And what it did was make Connecticut more fiscally sound. And if we hadn't done that, this would have gone on for months. Who knows where it would have ended, but it wouldn't have been what's best for Connecticut. And it ended up being what was best.
Yeah. And we really appreciate, what you did there. And I think, trying to think about how we bring people together, working even between Republicans and Democrats, it's going to require a certain amount of compromise. I think if both sides get, everything, if one side gets everything they want, then something's wrong. Because nobody should have everything that they want. Otherwise, somebody just doesn't have a voice in the process. And I kind of see that also in the Republican Party itself. How do we convince people? I mean, is there a chance that we're going to have open primaries? What do you know about that?
Well, I just want to comment quickly. I think the Democrat Party has the same issue we have. There is an extreme side of their party, and they try and push and bully and take control over what's going on. And one of my very close, statewide elected official Democrat friends said, Themis, we're coming to the same place that you guys. We're just a couple years behind. So I think for people, they believe in their basic principles, but they also want their elected officials to work together and do what's best. And if you look at it, I mean, you look at the governor of Massachusetts, Charlie Baker, you look at the governor of Maryland, Larry Hogan, those are both Republican governors in Democrat states, right? They are the two most popular governors in the United States of America. Larry Hogan was term limited out. Charlie Baker wasn't, but the Republicans in Massachusetts took over their Republican Party, and nominated somebody that was not electable. Now, Charlie made the decision not to run on his own, and I have the, highest regard for him. He did a great job, and I think if he ran again, whether it was as a Republican or an unaffiliated, he would have won. But why did he want to go through all that? When he's being fought by his own party, and they want to run somebody who has no chance of winning in a state like Massachusetts, and that's what we're seeing. I mean, to your question, do I think, and how do we change it? I mean, I'm hoping that this year's election, and I've already seen people's tone changing and their opinion changing. That doesn't mean that everybody's changing. That doesn't mean we're there yet. But I think we've all seen the tone changing as to what's working and what's not working for our party.
Yeah,
I have to agree.
I think so. And I think, part of it, and that, I mean, one of the reasons we're doing this show is I think a lot of the polarization comes from people getting sort of drawn into certain information and opinion bubbles where they're not really exposed to other people. And there's, on both sides of the aisle, there tends to be a tendency to sort of demonize the other person with a different opinion. But in a diverse country like America, we have a lot of people with differences of opinion. So, I think actually the media has a big impact, and the parties also have a big impact. And, I'm hoping that we can do something about it, to try to bring a little bit of sanity back. So in Connecticut, let's just hope that that's something that's going to move forward. What do you see in the party coming up for the next, like the 2024? What do you see happening in 2024?
In Connecticut?
Yeah, with
I mean, I think everybody is just reassessing now. I don't think that there's been any real conversation about what's going to happen in 2024, because, there are people that thought that the candidates that we ran were the best candidates, and now they're just in complete shock as to why this happened. And then there were people that knew all along that they probably weren't the best candidates. And so everybody has to get together in regards to that and say, go to that reassessing that I talked about and sit down and figure out, again, where are we and who are we and who do we want to be?
Right.
Do we want litmus tests about I support this person or I don't support that person? Or do we want to say, listen, guys, we need to figure out who the best person we have that, we agree with enough, but really has the chance to win.
Right.
Absolutely. Themis, I have to take it's like a 17-second break, and we're going to come right back and ask you a couple more questions, if that's all right.
Okay, sure.
All right, thanks very much.
This is the home of the CT Strategist Report with Daniel Kent Newmeyer. Interviews with Connecticut's top leaders, expert political analysis, news, commentary. Gain the insider's perspective.
Welcome back to CT Politics Live. I am Jimmy J in for Joe Aguirre. That is Dr. Amy Chai in for our flu-ridden Michelle. We are here with our special guest, Themis Klarides. Hello, welcome back, Themis. Real quick before Amy cuts me off, because I'm probably going to ask a stupid question, and she asks all the smart questions. She's got that DR in front of her name. Do you think I don't even like saying his name, even though, do you think the Trump factor had a lot to do with this election in Connecticut itself with some of the candidates and nationwide?
I think there's no question it did. I think we saw what happened in the battleground states. We saw Pennsylvania, we saw Arizona, we saw what's going on in Georgia. We saw how those really affected the results, and those were Trump endorsed candidates, and I really believe that whether it's in Connecticut, less in Connecticut, but I still think it affected. I mean, I think it actually is more in Connecticut, but it wasn't as much of a surprise in Connecticut. I mean, there is no surprise that if you request and almost beg for Donald Trump's endorsement and you ultimately get it, and that is your claim to fame, that you are probably not going to be successful.
Yeah.
Okay. That shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. But you have these other states where we saw losses of Trump endorsed candidates. And I think it's really interesting that a couple of weeks before the election, what did we hear? We saw it was going one way in February, then it was going another way in June, then it was going another way in August. And then a couple of weeks before it was, moms are going, trending towards Republicans, and, young people are trending towards Republicans. And then it completely went the other direction. And I think that, we talk about democracy and who is pro-democracy. I mean, I would never say that anybody, because of a party, is anti-democracy. But I do think that people really were sick and tired, of the name calling and of the, the posturing and the behavior, of him, and then going in and kind of just, trying to browbeat people and think that, just because I'm endorsing you that you should win. I mean, I think George is a perfect example. Governor Kemp, I'm a big fan of. Again, I don't necessarily agree with every policy ever put forth, but he is a strong, traditional Republican. All right. And he has gotten into brawls with the former president many times. He clearly was upset with him that he didn't do what he wanted him to do in the last election. And Donald Trump came in and worked against him. He actually had somebody primary him. He pushed David Perdue to primary Governor Kemp.
Oh my goodness.
Kemp won that was a big thing. He won the primary and then he won the election. And if you look at it, I mean, generally speaking, if the governor and the U.S. Senate candidate are both at the top of the ticket, you would think that the results would be give or take similar. Herschel Walker didn't get that same support. And one was endorsed by Trump and one wasn't. And I think that it was a referendum in many of the states for that reason.
So speaking of the T word, what is your feelings on the January 6th? I don't.
Are
Whatever you
you
want
really
to
going to
call that.
ask that, Jimmy? Are you really going to ask
Whatever,
that? Okay.
yeah. I mean, like I don't personally, I don't personally call it an insurrection, but that's just me.
Yeah.
But I would really love to know what you would think.
Well, I think it was a horrible day in our history.
Mhm.
I certainly support people's uh, want and need and right to rally, to protest, to stand up for what they believe in. But I do not support anybody's right to break into a building, injure people, injure law enforcement and other citizens. And, I think it was just a horrible day in our history. And I think that Donald Trump had something to do with that. I do.
I'm
Yeah.
I
actually
mean,
coming
listen,
around. I'm not gonna
people
lie.
are not robots, right? Everybody that was there that day has personal responsibility for themselves. No
Right.
question about it. Nobody made them do anything. But let's be
Right.
honest. I mean, this isn't the janitor down the street. This is the president of the United States, and people look up to that person, whoever it is. And he or she has an obligation to to act a certain way when you are a role model to people and people look up to you. And there's no question that he was very unhappy about the results. He wasn't accepting the results. He wanted them to stand up and fight. And he didn't care what that meant to everybody. Everybody had different expressions of that standing up and fighting. And he was perfectly happy to let them do that. And I just don't think that that's right. I mean, I think you have an obligation as an elected official, just like I think you have an obligation as a professional athlete. Kids are looking up to you. You're role models.
Yeah.
You can't act like a jerk, right? You can't be disrespectful. You can't be a bully. You can't be these things that we all learn as kids you can't be. Or
Yeah.
else you
Everything
get
we learned
punished.
in kindergarten not to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, sticks and
Behaviorally.
stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me was also
Mhm.
learned in kindergarten, and that's no longer the case.
Yeah. Well, it's rough. And I hope we don't see another Biden Trump race in 2024, but we may. But and I know it's too soon to ask you, Themis, but what do you see for your own political future as far as, are we going to have like a Governor Klarides, or are we going to have like a Senator Klarides? I think you would be a great candidate. What do you think?
Well, thank you so much. But right now I'm just, still in the clearing my head phase. I want to try and enjoy the holidays for the first time in, 22 years. I haven't been worried about getting a caucus put together and, being out and about in my district and all over the state, which I love doing. But
Mm-hmm.
right now I'm
Yeah.
just, trying to clear my head and see what's next for me.
That actually sounds pretty good.
Doesn't it?
This
I've
isn't
never had that experience, so it's a new thing.
this isn't really a question. I'm just going to throw this out there for the cheap seats. Clemens Stewart on a lieutenant governor ticket. What do you think?
Well, again, I'm,
That is Klarides and
certainly
Aaron
I
Stewart.
think that the mayor has done a great job in New Britain. And for right now, I'm just, I kind of have everything. I'm still practicing law, and I'm keeping my mind open to what I think might be next.
Okay, well, we hope you don't give up after this, distressing year that you had, and we wish you would have been the candidate, or but I guess it's good to take a break, take a little holiday time off, and I understand that you and I have something in common, and that is cats.
Yes, none of
Do
them
you
are
have
here right now. I have 3.
Oh, 3 of
I
them? What are
actually
their
had
names?
2, Penelope and Stavros, so they're Greek cats.
Oh, Greek cats.
Yep. And Winston, who is my parents' cat, my mom passed this summer, so I
I'm sorry.
adopted him. So
Sorry
I
about
have the
that.
3 of them.
Yes.
Normally they're like walking around and staring right into the camera. And
Yeah, I know the feeling. I sometimes get my cat like jumping up here and like waving her little tail in front of the studio.
Exactly.
But yeah, cats are awesome. But it's a good way. I'm glad you were able to adopt your mom's
Did
cat.
you
I think
ask?
that's
Did you
great.
ask my sister about cats yesterday? Because she had 6 cats
I
at
think
one
we
point.
did.
Oh my
actually,
goodness,
I think
6
we actually
cats?
did ask her.
Oh
She
my
had
goodness.
three sets of siblings at one point. About 10 years ago, she had to find homes for one of the sets, Linus and Lucy, because they were being bullied. And she had a cat this past winter that passed. So she has 3 now. But just today, we were at our local animal shelters, and making kind of our holiday donations to them. And they had so many. I mean, there were little kittens that were like 5 weeks
Oh.
old that
Aw.
didn't even kind of their fur wasn't over their nails
Oh.
yet.
Oh my, thank God my
And so
wife wasn't
every
there.
time I go, it's hard, because you want to take them all home.
Oh,
absolutely.
yes.
Well, Themis, I really and true, and I know Dan does as well. Appreciate you coming on, and I know that Dr. Chaya appreciates it. She can tell you for herself, but truly an honor to speak with you. We really hope you don't give up politics, Klarides Stewart's. But thank you very much for coming on, and I hope we can talk again sometime.
And
Well,
have
it's
a
my
great
pleasure.
holiday. Have a wonderful time with your family and your cats. You got cats to keep you warm and your family to
I
keep
do.
you warm too.
I do, and thank you both for what you're doing and getting information out there, because I think that's so important. I think we need more of that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Indeed. Okay, well, thanks for being with us.
My pleasure. Have a good night.
You too.
That was awesome. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel bad for, what happened this summer. It seems like the whole ad about like, you're not one of us. And I'm like, wow,
Right.
that's pretty offensive.
That, yeah.
So I think, Themis is showing a great deal of grace, a great deal of character. And, I hope she keeps up the good fight, because she really wants to help the state. And I think that's great.
Absolutely. Now that she knows my face and stuff, if I ever decide to run, I hope she'll remember me and like endorse me as a Republican.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness.
Because
You
I think
have
if I got her,
political
a tiny bit, but I think
A
if
little
I
bit,
got
okay.
Themis Clemens' endorsement, I think I'd be good in like a
Oh
town
yeah.
council
Oh
or
my
something.
goodness. Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was
Go for
so like I've never spoken to her before. Like I know who she is, obviously, and I was extremely upset when she got primaried,
Mhm.
and but I've never gotten to speak to her yet. So I was extremely happy to talk to her tonight, truly. So I guess that's it, right? That was a great show, I think. Seriously, thank you very much for all your help tonight, Amy.
Yeah. And once again, we want to say to everyone on CT Politics TV, please get well soon. And if you're out there today watching and you're not feeling well, take care of yourself, go get checked out. Don't ignore any symptoms that you might be having, because it's just not worth it to ignore your symptoms. Go in, get checked. If you need to get a swab for COVID or flu, just go do that, and take good care of yourself, everybody, because you're important.
Yes, you are. And thank you so much for joining us. Get all the latest headlines concerning Connecticut by visiting ctpolitics.tv /headlines-news, and follow us at CT Politics TV on social media. Well, that does it for us. We'll be back tomorrow night at 5 p.m. For Dr. Amy Chai, I am Jimmy J. Thank you and good night.
Good night.
CT Politics, we're cutting out the political bull. Yeah, I guess that about sums it up. Join in the fight now. Go to ctpolitics.tv to join the Connecticut Taxpayers Union.